How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Viral Virtue. It's your favorite apostates. I'm McKay.
I am Jordan.
We and our friends at Balesa are literally sending out free vibes to everyone who signs up for our giveaway, so stay tuned for information on that. We took a little bit of a break because Jordan was studying for her exam big time and took it and passed it by a large margin. Everybody, snaps for Jordan. She's officially a licensed clinical social worker. Let's go.
I'm officially a licensed therapist. I am now licensed in Utah, Idaho, and Colorado. So, very exciting for me. So, I had to take some time off to study and get all my shit together for a minute. So, if you're wondering about our absence, that is why. I do have a job. This is our second job, so that had to take precedence for a minute, but we're back.
But before we get on with today's topic, let's have a word from today's sponsor for this episode, Balesa.
If you've been here before and you know us, you know we love Balesa. Balesa is a by women sexual wellness company that meets all of your needs. Guys, we know that Balesa was in the lab because they cooked up the most iconic trio of all time. This is the Whisper Tech collection, and just listen to this.
It's so insane how these are all so quiet. But there's no trade-off here, no need to sacrifice power or discretion because you can have both. The Whisper Tech line packs a punch without letting the entire house know about your little trip to self-care. And it's awesome because there is something for everyone.
There's a Whisper Bullet, the silent bullet vibe with 5 speeds. It's tiny and literally inaudible, but the power is insane.
We also have the Whisper Rabbit and the Whisper Vibe, both of which have 6 vibration speeds. Whisper Vibe gives you the quietest hands-free internal stimulation that you'll find, while Whisper Rabbit gives you independently adjustable internal and external stimulators in case you need to crank it up just a little bit more, but in complete silence.
And you can't beat how silky soft they feel. Obviously, we want to give the people what they want, so we have to hook you up. So everyone who signs up wins a free Whisper Vibe or a free Air Vibe with any Whisper purchase. So go grab your free vibe with your order at the link in the description.
Like I said, we were gone for a little bit there, just missed a couple uploads, whatever. We're back, but this was one of the ones that we wanted to do right when it came out, but we were obviously swamped at the time, so
well, we got a lot of requests.
Fell to the back burner. Yeah. But the podcast, The Squeeze, hosted by Taylor and Taylor Lautner, which I always think is so funny. They're both named Taylor.
This is a safe space for you.
Right. Well, and it's funny that they're Taylor and Taylor because Jordan is Jordan McKenzie and I'm McKay. So
McKenzie.
Really,
can you imagine?
We're kind of almost in the same boat.
Can you imagine?
Just a little background on Taylor Lautner that I thought was really funny. The actor, right? With this particular episode, because we're going to be watching the one where they interviewed Chad Franke of 8 Stars Infamy, or 8 Stars.
8 stars.
Of 8 Passengers Infamy, right?
8 stars for being terrible.
Right. Here's the, Mormonism butterfly effect. If you've heard of the... Is that a butterfly or an eagle?
I don't know.
Come on, this is...
It's a butterfly. Isn't that from
eagle.
Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah. It's a bird.
It's a bird.
Right?
It can be a butterfly.
Anyway, if you've heard of the 50 Shades of Grey butterfly effect, this is kind of in the same vein, right? Because 50 Shades of Grey was written originally as a Twilight fan fiction.
Twilight was heavily inspired by the music of My Chemical Romance, right? And My Chemical Romance's heavy inspiration for forming was Gerard and Mikey Way and the advent of 9/11. Experiencing that kind of fueled them in their young angst and everything like that. So, in a way, 9/11 led to 50 Shades of Grey, right?
In that same way, Twilight was also written by Mormon author Stephanie Meyer. When they were doing the movie for Twilight, they cast Taylor Lautner as Jacob, which is interesting.
Excellent choice.
In a movie written by a Mormon, And now we have Taylor Lautner interviewing Chad Franke, who is in this crazy situation because of Mormonism influence. So I think that's a nice little wrap
Wow.
around.
What a journey
Just
we're
wanted
on.
to put that out there.
What a journey we're here for today.
We got a lot of runtime to get through here. Some of the stuff, if it gets a little too off topic, I'm going to end up cutting out. We just want to talk about the things that he brings up in here, the Mormon angle, in case you weren't aware, because we talk about it all the time. We are former Mormons, so we have a lot of unique perspective to add to this. And we felt like it was kind of a big enough update to
And we
kind of
love
include
to
some of the other
center-
stuff on there.
We love to center the voices of survivors themselves, right? Like, I don't want to hear shit from Ruby.
Right.
I'll read whatever Chad and Sherry decide to put out there about their experience. So we love this for them.
Let's get this going, and we will see what we're dealing with, right?
Chad, welcome to the Squeeze.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. So backstory here. I DM'd Chad not long ago. We made this happen fairly quickly.
Yep. Yeah.
Telling him we would love to have him on the show, and he didn't see my DM immediately, but not too long after he saw it, and I got a response, and I was so excited.
You'll forgive him for not seeing it right away?
Yeah, I'll forgive him.
I'm going to bring this up. It doesn't bother me, but constantly there are comments on our channel about Jordan's vocal fry. Constantly. I wonder if those same people will be saying that about Taylor Lautner. Just curious.
It's misogyny. No.
Just curious.
The funniest thing about that to me is the lore with me is I didn't know I had that.
That's just how she talks.
That's just how I talk. And I know influencers will be like, I do have this accent. That's how I talk. So I'm sure I sound like all of them in saying that. But somebody commented something like that on our video years ago. And I had no idea what it even was. And I had no
Right.
idea that I even sounded that way. And so I promise you, I've been talking like this for however long I've been talking. And I don't know how to fix
Right.
it. And I'm a product of my environment, living in Utah for a while, probably. Phil, Dill, Hill, you know. So I can't fix it. So I'm sorry. I am sorry.
It is what it is. I just think that's kind of interesting.
It is interesting.
Sorry for the tangent.
Well, we're just so thankful to have you with us, and I'm sure a lot of people know your backstory, and we'll dive into it a little bit today. But we find that so often with these true crime stories, a lot of the tension is on the offender and less more so on the victims, and those are the people that really truly matter in these stories. And so we're just excited to sit down with you and just to hear your story and hear more about you, learn more about you, and where you're at today.
Yeah.
So
I think
to
that's
start
a
off,
really
you
I think that's a really kind of, it feels like that's a hot take nowadays. With I don't know, maybe it's growing in popularity, but with the 2010s and how true crime podcasts and content and everything like that, it feels, and especially ones where the victims can't speak for themselves anymore
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
they are not around. It feels really gross when that's the focus is on like the heinous crime that was committed or whatever, instead of in a lot of cases the way that the victims were able to overcome or anything, even if they weren't, right? If it should be about them, and people who do awful things shouldn't have like the majority of the story being told about them.
Yeah. I don't consider us a true crime channel. We fell into, I think, a subspace of that, if you will, because of 8 Passengers. But I don't consider ourselves a true crime channel, and I couldn't do it. Like, if you've been here long enough, you've probably heard me talk about this. I refuse to listen to true crime, generally speaking. This case was really hard for me because my mom's also insane. And so that kind of stuff, like that kind of content does have an impact on you. And I hear from people constantly of like, oh, I didn't realize how bad my anxiety was until
until I stopped listening.
I stopped listening to true crime, and then I was like, wow, I'm not as paranoid, I'm not as anxious. And I'm not saying that you can't consume it in a reasonable amount, but I see people all the time who don't understand the impact and the influence that even something like that can have even on your nervous system, like unconsciously. So that's just a side tangent here, but yeah, that's my soapbox with why I don't listen to true crime.
Grew up very much in the public eye on your mom's YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, which had millions of followers. It was large, I remember.
When did it start?
Yeah, I think I was around 8 years old, so 20, I don't know, it was 2013, 2014, or 2015, one of those years.
Okay.
So pretty early on when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
When did it like take off? Was it just like right off the bat that it was a thing, or was there like a certain point after you guys have been doing it for a while you're like, oh, this is really picking up?
Yeah, it definitely didn't get big at first. It did get big pretty fast because it wasn't actually my mom's original idea to start a YouTube channel. It was her sister. So her sister was the one who kind of started the YouTube thing because she was younger and she was more familiar with social media. And her sister's channel did really well. And then they had a video that blew up because she finally was able to have a kid because they were, struggling. And so that video blew up and my mom saw like, oh, this pays really well. Let me try it out.
Of course.
And, she wasn't very good at it at first, like we all are. And there was a lot of bad things that, it didn't look very good. And the YouTube was the editing was all weird and everything. But eventually she got it and people started getting interested. And I think within the first like 2 years, it got pretty big and the paychecks started looking good for her.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I don't even know if money would have been a motivating factor for Ruby. Like for what we know now through reading Sherry's book, which if you haven't, we did a 2-video deep dive breakdown of Sherry's book. It's the fame, it's the attention,
Right.
it's, being perceived by people. Like that's, I think, what inflames Ruby. And so I don't even know if the money obviously is a nice bonus, especially, but I mean, I don't feel like they were struggling for money. I mean, Kevin's an engineer. Like that's,
Right.
they don't
Well,
get
and
shit pay over there usually.
You look at how she basically allowed Jody to drain their savings accounts
Mm-hmm.
and absolutely just fucking nuke the channel
Mm-hmm.
and destroy all of that. But she was able to still get that attention that she was craving in some way, shape, or form. So it feels like money was probably a secondary motivator.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
It's nice, whatever. And I don't know, at
I'm sure
one
it's
point she
enticing.
probably was lost in the sauce on that because they were doing all kinds of sponsorships and everything like that. Or maybe it was her way to justify it to
But
Kevin
it
or
could also be
whatever.
unconscious, right? Like she's not aware that that's what's pulling her towards this, but the money also seems good. So to the outsider, that makes sense. But, money also inflates her lifestyle to maybe what a narcissist or a narcissistic tendency type person would want. Like I have fame, I have fortune, I have a nice house, I have beautiful furniture, I have a beautiful family. Like the money is an avenue to maintaining like the narcissist, like what would you call that?
Facade, I guess.
Facade, essentially, that she wanted.
But at the time, like, were you able to like comprehend that your life was being shared with like people all around the world?
Yeah, I think I liked it because I
Okay.
realized that looking through the comments that people liked me and liked what we were doing and they liked the videos and I think I attached onto it pretty fast.
Yeah.
It wasn't like fame. It wasn't like I'm famous or I'm super popular, but getting the attention, I liked it
Yeah.
as a kid and so I'd say I knew what I was doing in the videos and I knew how to grab people's attention. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. So,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Being on YouTube in a capacity where people recognize you is like, obviously, I don't know what it's like for Chad because they've had a huge platform compared to us and they were living in the demographic
Mhm.
or like
Where people were
a
watching.
primary demographic of people who were watching. But like, it's such an odd feeling for me as an adult. Like recently, just within the last, I think since the last video was uploaded, 2 people have recognized me in public. And like, we're small enough that I don't live my life in a way where I expect people to recognize who I am. it always catches me off guard. And if you are one of those people, I sincerely apologize for however I may have been like,
It's still weird, even though it's
I
happened a lot of times
cannot
now.
like ever kind of balance myself in that situation. So for some kid who, when their channel was getting big, was like 10 years old, and people are out in public and they're like, oh my God, it's Ruby Franke. Hi, Ruby. And they like know all their kids and everything like that. That would be such a tough dynamic to navigate as a kid.
Well, I can't think of unhealthier circumstances to put a child in, particularly. We know now there's a lot of research coming out about like our generation, the generation younger than us that's had social media the whole time, like the impacts that that's having on their brains, their self-esteem, their perception of themselves, how they interact with other people. Like we're seeing how damaging social media is just for like regular old kids who are participating. So I can't imagine like and when has this ever been studied? I don't know, but I can't imagine the like concentrated impact that it would have on somebody who has a platform on social media, like children of influencers.
Right.
Like what I think we can, this is just my hypothesis, but I think we can take that research that says that this is extremely unhealthy for children and we can magnify that by like 1,000. Because it's not always positive comments, right? Like Sherry talked about in her book, how people would comment like rude shit on the videos or say rude shit about her. And it's like
Right.
when you're a kid and you're trying to internalize that and you're trying to develop your sense of self and who you are and you're trying to find your identity, like that cannot be good for you in any sense.
I feel like it's slightly different between what Taylor may have experienced, because he was still a minor, I think, when he got the role for
Was he?
Jacob. Maybe for the first movie. I think
Hmm.
he was like 15 or 16. He was young. But at least in a situation like that, like people are probably not recognizing him as Taylor Lautner. They're probably recognizing him as the character that he was playing. In a
Mhm.
lot of cases, that's what you see.
At least there's like
Some
a
sort of layer of
differentiation.
separation.
Yeah.
So for a kid to be recognized, and they're not playing a persona, they're just their authentic self on the internet, on their parents' channel, like, and getting recognized in public would be crazy.
How often did you guys film? Like, was it, I guess, like,
A
yeah,
daily thing?
Yeah.
Like how did school work? Were
Yeah.
you homeschooled? Were you able to go to school? And how did that work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With YouTube lifestyle vlogging, there's no scheduled time for filming. That's your life. I mean, if you say something and you don't catch it on camera, the camera comes out, they press record, and then you say it again. So like
Right.
everything you say is going to be recorded, even if you have to say it again and again. And so yeah, school, just regular school. When you come home, you share your day, share your stories of what happened,
Okay.
and
But you went to a public school.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So do you feel like you still had a bit of a normal childhood since you did go to school and you were still doing things, or did it feel like you had to come home and like, you were filming this bit today or whatever it was?
Yeah. Yeah. I think as a child, I had a very normal childhood, like from the age 8 to 14. I think I had a very good, still hang out with friends and you can have your private life, and
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. And but yeah, that's a really good point. Like I said, when you have to re-say everything you do, or you go and have fun with friends, then you have to kind of repeat everything over again.
Yeah.
When you talk about it, it makes me realize how much I was living life on repeat, just talking to the camera. It's like the people behind the camera was also my mom. I was talking to my mom, telling her about my day, but I was looking at the camera the whole time. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
See,
like,
like that's just such an awful thing to think about.
It's inauthentic.
Right. Like
Everything's a performance.
living your life on set, right?
Hmm.
Like it's just an unhealthy way, because actors go home.
Right. You check out.
Like even like on reality TV or like unscripted TV or whatever.
We have child labor
They-
laws.
There's
Hello.
laws, there's separation of work and whatever, because you're only on when the camera crews are there, right?
Hmm.
But when the camera crew is your mom and the content is your day-to-day life,
And she also enjoys like exploiting you.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, every awful little thing that happens, or every little embarrassing thing that could,
Or every ER trip or
yeah, is all there for the content. And even worse is that is the content that gets the most kind of views
Mhm.
generally on a lot of these channels is
Yup.
when you have to go to the hospital, you're in an embarrassing situation or anything like that. So I think that, I mean, it's something that people do not take into account when they're just like, we can get a lot of views. We can make a lot of money if we're just filming our day-to-day life and putting it on the internet.
Mhm.
Do you feel like your moments of, like, looking back now, moments of, joy or your struggles as a kid, like, do you just feel like that was kind of viewed as content rather than like maybe addressing, like actually congratulating you or like addressing the problem that may have been going on?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think when it comes to entertainment, if I was just to like live my everyday, no drama, no pain, nothing, that's not very good content. So
Yeah.
I think my mom knew very quickly that if I mean, even if someone like fell and hit their head, or if I had a bad day at school, or the principal called me into his office,
Yeah.
that's drama. That's,
Yeah.
that's pain, that's content. And I think she really knew that and fed off of it. So the camera would mostly come out when something entertaining was happening, or even if I was in pain or if I fell or, got in trouble, that was good content for her. And
Yeah.
I think in a way it was also very, very bad parenting not to set the camera aside and just focus on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did you
that
ever-
goes for all of us.
Yeah.
So,
Did you ever ask?
I feel like that should go without saying, but for a lot of people, it does not. Especially with these family channels where it's like, I don't know, they get caught, they forget to cut something out, and then the thing that they forget to cut out is like, we're sitting in the car and we're crying, and they're like, you need to cry more or whatever because this is a sad situation, and it's just ridiculous. Like,
Do you remember a time you ever like, I don't want this filmed, or like, can we not like
Well, I mean, we
share
saw
that?
one moment.
Well,
but
yeah.
Did it happen
Yeah.
more often than
Yeah.
that, I guess?
yeah, she was very persuasive in a way where it was like, hey, I don't want this to be filmed. And, she would put it aside for a second. She'd be like, okay, we won't film it. And then once she kind of had a conversation and I started softening up a little bit, that's when she'd
Come
pull it back
back.
out. She's like, okay, he's calmed down a little bit.
Right.
So, yeah, she's very good in a sense of like not being, I mean, very early on, it was very easy because the paychecks weren't that big and, it was fun at first. And then, then she realized, this is a set. Our home is a set and we have to say certain things to catch the audience's eye. And yeah, I, start saying things just to make the camera happy and make the viewers happy. And
Yeah.
so you're very much right on that.
I mean, I think something there to pay attention to is one that's manipulation, right? Like Ruby's not putting this aside with the intent to say, like, oh, I actually care about you. I'm going to respect your wishes.
Right.
It's, I'm going to wait until you calm down and then I'm going to bring it back out, or I'm going to try to bring you around to the idea of sharing this because it would be beneficial for people your age to see how you, like, she'd do some
Right.
bullshit, right? Like that, knowing that it's full well for like her purpose, for her intent. Everything like that we've ever seen from Ruby on camera is just pure manipulation all the time. I think another thing that is notable here is, particularly when we're talking about narcissistic traits, something that happens, I think that maybe Ruby didn't account for, is children get harder to control as they get older. And so it's really easy for her to maintain a certain family image, a certain family dynamic, to like maintain this facade when her kids were younger and they lacked autonomy. They lacked the ability to be able to push back sustainably. They weren't in a rebellious phase like in being a teenager. And
Mhm.
I don't even think you necessarily had so much of that with Sherry either, because Sherry was very much trying to just keep her head above water and keep out of Ruby's bad side, right? And so Chad was really the one that, in my opinion, from the outside looking in, came as like the direct threat to Ruby's image. Like Chad represented truth, like Chad on like, which is funny to say of them, right? Like Chad represented the actual narrative that exists in that family, that he's a normal teenager, he's rebellious, he does stupid shit just like normal kids fucking do. Like all of that is a direct, like almost antagonizer to Ruby, who's trying to like perfectly maintain this very delicate image that she has projected onto the internet. And here comes Chad giving any kind of pushback, and there's no separation between her and that facade. She views it as real. And so anything that comes in that threatens that in any way is going to feel like a personal attack on Ruby.
It's interesting too with the added pressure of maintaining that family image of the idea within Mormonism, like this is an eternal family. This is like part of the plan of happiness. And even though things happen that are tough or whatever, there's still an image that needs to be kept up. So, you know, when they're going off script, so to speak, and going against their perfect family ideals and stuff like that was the draw. Is like, here's a nuclear family, they got a bunch of kids. And so when things are kind of falling apart at the seams or whatever, Ruby had the ability for most of the time when they were younger to, you know, ratchet everything down and make sure people aren't falling out of the boat or whatever they were saying.
Stay in the boat.
Yeah. So then as everybody's getting older and they have more boldness to stand up to their parents, then she's got to make more drastic, take more drastic measures to be able to get a hold on them. And it sounds like it just escalated exponentially.
At what point did you become aware of the online controversy surrounding your family?
Yeah. Did you guys watch the Hulu series?
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know if you did. Okay,
for
so
sure.
you guys know the video with, you know, me sitting on the ground with her, and you know, I finally revealed that I wasn't sleeping on a bed for a certain amount of months, and then when that video was posted, no joke, like that day was when the cancellation started. Like immediate backlash on her, huge unfollowing. I don't know much about news outlets, but basically TikTok was the big push to kind of cancel her.
Yeah.
And that's when I started seeing her panic a little bit. And I remember sitting in the living room just doing my homework, and I don't think I've ever shared this before, but she ran in from her room, and do you guys swear on this podcast?
You're allowed, yes.
Already? I don't know. And she, you know, this is when she was peak in therapy with Jody, and, you know, she was very clean mouthed, and, you know, she was very peaceful and quiet. But after that video came out and the controversy started hitting, she ran into the living room and she was like, "You bitch, you did that on purpose. You knew what you did. You knew what you were saying." And she was just yelling. And I haven't seen this side of her in a long time, like a very, very long time. And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I know people are upset with you." And then my dad actually came down and was like, "Ruby, you need to like leave. Like, you need to get away from him. He obviously didn't plan this. He didn't plan for you to get canceled." And
how old were you at that point?
I was...
Here's what's most interesting to me about this is this to me is an illustration of how self-deluded Ruby is. Because if you read Sherry's book, then you know the context around this situation was this specific clip was brought to the editor, like the person
Right.
who edited their stuff, and the editor brought it to Ruby and said, "Are you sure? I think this might be a little dicey to post. Maybe we shouldn't post this." And she said, "Nope, stamp of approval, let's go." And so to me, I just think this shows how self-deluded she is, because I truly don't think that she thought that she was going to get flack for this, because she's so in the trenches of her own bullshit that she's also bought into this other idea that
Right.
people worship her for what she does, right? So like it didn't roll through her head that she might be canceled. It didn't roll through her head because she's on this like entitled, I'm better than you, I'm elite at parenting soapbox, where like this incompatible idea that she's parenting in a horrifying manner can't coexist. Like it
Right.
can't sit in there. It's not possible to her. And if it is, like the way that she filters that through is it's everybody else's fault, right? It's Chad's fault. All of you are terrible parents. None of you know how to parent your children. Jody says
Right.
this is the right thing to do. Like it's not compatible with her like alternate reality worldview.
Well, and you see that with Jody too, when Jody melted down over the Google reviews. Like she's so lost in the sauce, she's blaming everybody that they don't have numbers that reflect whatever's going on Facebook, that she couldn't even think for 1 second and realize that their Facebook group numbers were inflated because of all the spectators and the snarkers who were in the group. So it's like she told the editor, yeah, do this. Obviously, everybody's going to eat it up because they know that this is the right thing for them. And then when it goes wrong, she can't be at fault in that whole situation. So the only other person in frame, Chad, you fucked it up for us.
It's your fault.
Way to go, idiot.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with people like this. Only one person in my life has ever been like this, and it only took one time of me trying to push back, and I was like, oh, I really am not ever going to make a difference if I try to push back or do anything like that, because I'm always going to be in the wrong
Mhm.
in their eyes.
15?
Okay.
15 or 16.
And you
Yeah.
had been sleeping on a beanbag
Yeah.
for how long?
7 months. So
Okay.
yeah, almost, a little over a
And
year.
that's what this incident is over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people were really upset about that. And just because she said it so casually, like, yeah, he's been sleeping on the floor. Yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't have a bedroom or a bed.
Yeah.
And people started catching on very quickly, like in the videos, to what she was doing. I remember there was a video with a little clip, and it was she took the door off my bedroom that I had, and I wasn't sleeping in there, but she still took the door off. And then she took the door off my bathroom as well in the basement. So she didn't want me to have any kind of privacy at all. And people started catching on to that. And the hate started growing and growing and growing. And then, she kind of just left it. So
Yeah.
just left YouTube completely.
When you start,
That whole situation was kind of crazy because, like, when I remember when we were originally hearing about this, like, the first thing that came to mind was like, oh, they're taking away his privacy. It must be something related to pornography or
Yeah.
whatever. This was like a long time ago when we didn't have
Any
really the
information.
progression that was going on. We're like, oh, he probably was caught watching something he shouldn't be. And then they're like, oh, yeah, you can't have a door or whatever. Because that's like the classic thing. But yeah, never in a million years would have imagined that was going to be the
The outcome.
progression of things to come.
Well, in my opinion, children are entitled to some level of privacy. Like, children are entitled to some level of privacy. And so, yes, there are things that we do to protect them and keep them safe and have safeguards and protections, and because they have an underdeveloped brain and they're not aware of the dangers that exist
Right.
and they're invincible, right? Like, it's our job to step in that way, but it is not appropriate to take away a bathroom door. That
15
is
years
insane.
old? Absolutely not.
No way.
No. Everyone deserves a chance to poop in peace.
Literally. Jesus.
seen the online hate or people questioning
Yeah.
your parents, because like these are your parents.
Yeah.
They start questioning things that they're doing at that age. Like, whose side are you on?
Yeah.
Because I could imagine that there's maybe a bit of like at first like defensiveness where you're like, I mean, you're still a kid.
Yeah.
And people are questioning your life. They're questioning your parents, how you're being raised. Or were you already at a breaking point where you were, seeing those comments and you're like, yeah, I'm living that right now?
It's a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. I wasn't active on social media, me personally, during that. So I saw what they were saying, but I didn't really take it. I wouldn't really reply to it or post it. That day when the video was posted and the cancellation started, from that moment, people on social media started saying "Free Chad," and that was a large hashtag people started using. It was like in the year 2020, so it would be "Free Chad 2020." And my mom, she saw that, and I think she got pretty nervous, pretty upset. She started hiring high-end lawyers to kind of shut all that down, take those videos away, because when someone wants to free a child from their mom's arms,
Yeah.
that movement grows pretty fast. And so, Free Chad was a big thing, at least in my eyes, and I started seeing that. And during that time, I was working with Jody very tightly, very closely. She was my therapist, and I had like a love for her in a sense where I trusted everything she told me to do.
For sure.
And same with my mom.
Yeah.
And
That
So
also
what-
just confirms what we have always suspected, which is at that time, Jody was not operating as a therapist under any sort of license. She was a coach, but she was telling everybody that she was a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
which we suspected for a long time.
I saw everything go down. I didn't really think much of it. In fact, I actually knew how much money they were making, and I was nervous about the money.
Mm.
And to
Oh,
know that the
man.
views were going
That's
to go
just
down.
another thing.
This is where we talk about
Ugh.
why children being involved in influencing like this is unhealthy, because there is some monetary awareness more so than probably the average child. And, again, backed by research, it's pretty well established that children shouldn't be aware of financial considerations. Like, children shouldn't
Right.
know if you're struggling with money. Children, like, the more they know, generally we see anxiety arise out of that. Like, I see people all the time where they have anxiety around finances, and that comes from, well, my parents were always worried about money. And that translates into your kids. They see those things. And so I think being careful about what you're presenting to your children around money is a really important consideration. And this is a situation where they are like uniquely tied to the monetary aspect of this. And so I could
Right.
see, like, I would fear shame being involved in this, because it was like, oh, it was my fault. I brought up the beanbag thing, and now my parents are going to lose all this money. Like, that's just a conversation that we shouldn't even be fucking having for like numerous reasons, right?
And then even more so, like, Ruby was the one who wanted it in there, and then she just immediately pins it on him. I don't know if he knew that. Sounds like he didn't really know about the editor part, or I don't know. But I mean, even when they're too young to really understand the monetary value of all those clicks and views or whatever, when they're at a younger age and they see, oh, not as many people are commenting, not as people are watching, then obviously they're going to know when something's up, when you have to cut back on, luxuries and things like that, which
Yeah.
is just awful.
And that the sponsorships were going to go down. That was kind of my main focus was, oh no, we're going to lose money as
Did
a
you
family.
feel a little
and
guilty for affecting that?
I wouldn't say guilty, because I knew that wasn't my purpose or my motive in saying the beanbag thing.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't trying to make them lose money, but yeah, I was nervous for my parents to lose all their income. That was my big concern.
Who started this free chat movement, or just
Yeah.
Someone on the internet.
everybody, the internet?
Mainly just TikTok videos. Yeah.
yeah.
I think there was, I don't know whose name it was or who it was specifically, but there was this girl who posted like a big video that went viral, and she actually went on news stations, and my mom tried to shut that down and everything. And yeah, she basically just posted a video starting the whole free chat thing.
Yeah.
So
You said something that I remembered when we were watching the doc,
Mm.
and comments and stuff I was seeing online, and I'm curious your take now. But like, as you were just saying, like, you loved your mom. It's your mom, of course. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to trust this person. You're going to trust Jody, someone that your mom, loves and trusts and is your therapist and you're confiding in. Like, obviously you're a child, and like, you don't understand that maybe like their intentions or how they're doing things
Yeah.
isn't necessarily the best. And
Yeah.
did you feel, because I know I saw some stuff online and I felt like I got defensive over you not knowing you, just people being like, well, why, like, how did he like not see that? Like, this therapist isn't an actual therapist. Like, why is she like, people just basically saying that, how did you not see that?
Yeah.
But I think people forget that.
If you are on the internet and saying that, I need you to like go
Log
get your
off.
head checked.
Log off.
Okay, because like, what the fuck? That is literally like, we talk about this all the time. The implicit trust of having a therapist is that this person is licensed, is qualified, and has an ethical framework that they adhere to, right? So like, when people go to therapists, generally speaking, unless they've already had a bad experience, they're not going to go into it with, maybe I should take what my therapist is saying with a grain of salt. Maybe I should
Right.
consider whether my therapist is actually following ethical guidelines. Because you go into it, you go to a therapist, and specifically not a coach, for that reason. Because we are governed by a board. I am held accountable to multiple state boards, to multiple ethical frameworks, right? Like, that's the nice thing about being with therapists like that. And then to also think that somebody who's being actively abused, actively neglected by their parents is going to look at their parents and see that for what it is. Like, as a child who was actively abused and neglected, I did not necessarily see that from my upbringing until a little bit later, until I had my own therapist, until I started putting pieces together. Yes, there were things that I thought they were fucked up, but I never really understood
Right.
like the grandiosity of it all until way later on, until years down the line, right? And so I think it's such an unfair comment to make that, like, why
100%.
didn't you know? how didn't you know? Like, obviously your mom was rude. Like, I see people in therapy all the time where I respond to something that I'm like, what? Like, your parents did what? And they're like, oh, that's not normal? Like, people don't realize your upbringing is your framework for, like, what's normal, essentially. And people come to me all the time and say things, and they're like, wait, that's not normal? Or, like, even in my experiences, I tell McKay things, and he's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, that's not normal? I thought that's just how
Right.
people did things, or I thought that's just how parenting would, like, worked. Like, you don't realize that people have, like, your family of origin is your basis for understanding patterns, behavior, norms, essentially, right? And so his norms is Ruby. He doesn't have other family. He's not, like, in another family on the side as a child, like, with
Yeah, right.
different parents experiencing, like, an alternative paradigm, right? Like, this is the experience he has, and he's also being actively abused, right? Like, on what planet are we asking him to determine something that like a child to determine that?
In that same vein, it's such an offensive thing to see people comment when they're like, how are there such smart people that are associated with, and they're Mormons? Or like, how could you be so stupid to believe this? Like,
okay, yeah, call me
okay,
stupid.
yeah, go get in a time machine and go back and ask 8-year-old me why he was believing in that shit, because that's the only thing that I was told was the truth. Yeah, it sounds pretty goofy that Joseph Smith found a gold plate book that he translated by the power of God, and only like 12 or 15 people in all of human modern history were able to see that. Oh yeah, and God took it up back into heaven.
But we grew
That
up
sounds
with
pretty
that.
fucking stupid, but that's all I knew.
That's like what we grew up with. I mean, it's propaganda
Right.
at best, but that's what we grew up with.
Like, you have to understand that, like, you think of this on the outside looking in as so obvious because you're operating from a different framework completely.
Yep.
So
It's not comparable.
if you're thinking about ever commenting something like that on any similar type of thing, take a second.
You don't get it.
Because obviously when you're calling me stupid, I don't take very kindly to that. But
I need you to empathize a lot harder. We're not empathizing and
let's-
understanding enough.
let's have a moment here.
Like, you were a child, and as we grow up, we're raised to trust our parents and like what they're gonna do. And of course, you loved your mom and you trusted her, and you trusted that she would put you with someone, you know, that was actually going to help you and make you a better version of yourself. And I'm curious if you've felt any of that heat or looked back on that time and been like, I should have seen that, or just what your take is on that.
Yeah. Looking back at the whole entire picture, I feel like at least me personally, I'm very grateful for hard life experiences. When I look back at the hard life experiences, I'm kind of grateful for them in a sense of, sometimes I'm glad my mom was a bad mom, or sometimes I'm glad that Jody was in my life because I feel stronger because of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't say I look back and regret
Refiner's fire.
any of the things that, you know, I didn't do or did do.
Yeah.
I just am grateful that everything is, you know, everyone's safe now.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I'm in a good spot now. And I mean, the biggest thing that Jody kept teaching me was stay out of distortion. Distortion was the huge word that she just threw at me over and over and over again. Truth and distortion. Those were like heaven and hell,
Yeah.
good, bad. Those were the words she threw at me. And I mean, if I just fed into the social media, if I started listening to the things they were saying bad about my mom, I would be in distortion. That would be who I was. I would be a bad person. I'd be satanic. Like, she would use these huge words. And so I couldn't, even if I wanted to, if I fed into that kind of social media stuff and started taking sides with them instead of my mom, I'd be in that distortion. And in Jody's eyes, I'd be a bad person. And that's not what I wanted. So
This is also what I want to bring up with this. Jody is a very amped up version of this, but this is the Mormonism playbook right here as well. Like, that's why we always want to bring it back to this, because, like, this is not a unique idea to Jody. And when you're, like, to bring back to that idea where these people who are Mormons or whatever are operating under a framework that this is the only thing that there is. Like, literally nothing else matters. When you're on the internet and you're listening to us criticize the church, and its teachings and the effects that it has on its members and everything like that, and you're agreeing with us, then you're agreeing with apostates. Apostasy is bad. That makes you lose the gift of the Holy Spirit and other things. And when you don't have the gift of the Holy Spirit, you're probably going to be more susceptible to sinning. And there's this snowball effect. So distortion and truth are not unique ideas or principles that Jody invented on her own free will and like under her own free will. These are ideas that she's adapted from other places, just like Mormonism has probably adapted them from other places.
Any kind
as
of
well.
cult framework
Right.
that you see is going to have that in it, because it's this is in line with like what we'd call thought stopping, right? I'm not going to engage with the material because like if I like that's a bad thought, I have to stop. Like that's an anti-Mormon thought. That's like I can't
Right.
engage with that thought. Like we're not going to we're pausing critical thinking. We're preventing critical thinking from happening, because what happens if you look analytically at truth and distortion? What happens if you look analytically or critically at what Ruby and Jody are saying? You see that it's a load of fucking bullshit. Like that's
Right.
what you eventually, that's the conclusion you come to, right? And so they have to set up like all these fail safes essentially to keep the kids in, like keep them in the boat, keep them safe from this rhetoric. And if you do that well enough, if you are good enough at that skill, or if you like pound it in with this narrative of like, you're going to go to hell, Satan's going to get you, you use fear as
Right.
your determiner, then these kids are going to stay away from that without even having to prevent them, really. Like, there's too much fear in looking at that stuff that they're not even going to explore it, which is like, we've talked about this before. This is how I was with the ex-Mormon subreddit for years. I avoided the ex-Mormon subreddit like the plague because my
Totally.
mom had convinced me that I was going to get like sucked into Satan if I encountered any of that material, and especially Redditors. And so that's that idea for decade, like for an unreasonable amount of time, even when I was in my faith transition, I stayed away from the ex-Mormon subreddit because of that narrative, because of where you have to stay away from these certain groups. They're anti-Mormon, they'll
Right.
pull you in, they're tools of Satan, like whatever it is that you want to say. So that by nature, if you've done that, then you don't need to do any more work. Because even as an adult, even with a not fully developed, but mostly fully developed brain, I kept myself away from that because of that rhetoric. And so this really is like Mormonism on overdrive.
Distortion, essentially, anybody that is questioning you or your family's, like what you guys are.
Beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what distortion is.
Yeah. Distortion is, she would never use the word bad, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
Anything bad in her eyes or evil in her eyes was distortion.
Yeah.
And that was a huge word in my life. That was huge. So
It's a huge word in general.
I know.
Like, I don't even think I've
I
ever.
know.
Like,
I
what does
think-
that even actually
Like,
like
is this a
mean?
sci-fi
I
film?
know. I think she just took a random word that no one uses and just branded it as her own word.
Yeah.
So
I stand by my theory. Cognitive distortion is a term used in cognitive behavioral therapy. And I think Jody's a very CBT vibe kind of therapist in that, like, she's got, like, it's skills, it's frameworks. It's like, it's very, and CBT isn't bad. Don't get me wrong. I use CBT all the time. But, like, I think she pulled that from CBT and
Right.
essentially took the cognitive part off of it and then just rebranded it into her own bullshit.
Distortion.
Like, because it's not a regular term, but if like you're in therapy, you've done CBT before, it's a way that people think about their thoughts and analyze what they're doing. And so I think she was trying to be unique and just rebranded this weird word, and then it took on kind of a life all its own that I don't think even she was anticipating. I think this became like a fixation of
Right.
theirs. Like, if you've watched our content up to this point, you know how much they obsessed over truth distortion.
I mean, yeah, what you're not going to question the word that she's using, I guess, too.
yeah. Yeah.
So in the doc, I feel like there's a lot of like we were talking about earlier. We see these like the B-roll that didn't air, the behind the
Right.
scenes stuff that didn't make the cut, and it was really sad to watch it, especially just like the moments that you were like, I really don't like want to be doing this, and you can tell like you really did not want to be filming, like you didn't want to be doing it at some points. And when you watch that footage back, well, I guess had you seen it before, this whole documentary, and do you remember those feelings, or what do you think about when you see that footage?
Yeah. I didn't see them before. So when the trailer was released, I was like, oh wow, that brings
No.
back a lot of memories.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
So, but don't before they like made everything, they showed it to me, and I pre-watched the documentary before it was released. But with the trailer, that kind of was like, oh whoa, those are some crazy memories to look back on, and I do remember those feelings because in my mind, the whole thing, when they wanted me to say something and I didn't even feel like it, my mindset was like, okay, this is a job. This is how I play football in the summer. This is how we get to go on vacations. I can tell she's upset with me, so I'm just going to say it because this is how we make money. So
Yeah.
that was my mindset. I was like an employee, so
Yeah.
that's what it felt like.
I
Too
feel like
heavy a burden to shoulder.
right. And I can't imagine there being a family vlogging channel where that dynamic is completely
No way.
absent
No way.
from the entire ordeal. It just does not.
You can't control for that.
Right. There's
It's
no
inherent
way.
to the process.
Especially with the online nature of everybody's lives now. Like
Mhm.
it's just going to be a
Well,
thing.
even if you're not talking about the finances necessarily, like think about it. When these families get big, like Ruby's did, like we're buying a bigger house, we're buying
Right.
new cars, you're having toys show up at the door all the time, we're getting so many packages we can't even open them all. They just sit in the foyer. Like like there's no way, in my opinion, that in a family vlogging dynamic you can control for that because it will
you cannot.
like undeniably change your lifestyle. And kids will notice that. How do we get nicer cars? How do we get a bigger house? It's money. This thing that we're doing causes us money. And you have people like Ruby who are getting so invested in this that the pressure behind what they're doing and how constantly they're filming and how often they're pulling out the camera and saying, say that again, like
Right.
it's all undeniable part of the experience.
The only way it just doesn't make any sense because kids almost always are going to see a pattern happening, whether it be on the online portion of it, whether it be on the financial portion of it, or just like their surroundings and behaviors changing. Like patterns are going to be recognized. There's no way that a kid is not going to become in tune to that
With
whole
that.
dynamic. And it's just,
Yep.
it shouldn't be like that.
Do you struggle with like performance pressure or like perfectionism at all?
No, I
Okay.
wouldn't say perfectionism
Yeah.
or performance issues. Since I do like a lot of my own social media stuff now, I don't feel like I'm doing it for anyone or,
Good.
but yeah, if I was like in a movie or a TV show, I feel like I'd want to get it pretty spot
Yeah.
on and down. But
Yeah, because I feel like kids, like when they feel that pressure, like to perform well
Yeah.
from their parents, like
Well, even note the difference between Chad and Sherry in this. And that Sherry was striving to the point that it was negatively impacting her on a physiological level to like attain that perfectionist thing that Ruby was looking for, which was actually unattainable because there wasn't such a thing. Like the difference, and I think I see this a lot in Mormonism, which I think I don't work with, I work with Mormon women way more by comparison than Mormon men. But I think it's interesting because ex-Mormon and Mormon women alike, perfectionism is a trait that I see constantly. Like Mormonism is all about, refiner's fire. Like you go through tragedy and terrible things because it makes you a better person. And you're never good enough. You're not good enough. Jesus is the only reason that you're good enough. So you constantly have to strive. You're constantly striving for better than what you are right now. And I think there's room for patriarchy, misogyny, like a discussion to be had about how perfectionism, I think, impacts women differently than men. It's not to say that men don't have perfectionism because a lot of them do, but I think there's a unique aspect where Mormonism really pins that on women.
She's also got the eldest daughter kind of dynamic going on, which
Mhm.
is unfortunate. And then like Chad from a very young age, as we saw, was established as a fuck up.
Yep.
Like plain and simple. He was the one that was getting sent off to wilderness camp. He was the one who wasn't allowed to have a bed. He was the
Yep.
one who couldn't have doors and was getting in all this trouble. He was the one who had to be exiled, like Kevin, by Jody because he needed to work on himself and nobody was to have contact with him. So like he could be operating from a framework of now that he's, doing better, of like, well, we're just gonna roll with it, and whatever happens happens. And I'm not saying that whatever all that stuff that he did was damaging, and it's good to see that he's in a place where he can just roll with the punches and everything like that. But yeah, interesting how different the dynamic was, even though they're pretty close in age.
Yeah. Well, I hope this doesn't come across as me being a hater, but I honestly don't know how much of this experience can set it. Because how old is he?
He's like 19 or 20, maybe.
I hope this doesn't sound haterish, but I think how he interprets what has happened to him will probably evolve and cause different impacts across his lifetime. And I say that as a person who's like almost a decade older than him, but how my trauma, my experiences, I was very high achieving, very high perfectionist, very checking boxes. I was fine. My trauma was there, but it wasn't impacting me very much until suddenly it was. Until suddenly things happen, triggers happen, things come up. And so I think the important thing to take away from this is not that I'm not saying that he's not healed and a happy person now, because I'm sure that he is, but just to be mindful that like you have to take care of yourself
Right.
heavily throughout this process, because you never know when these things are going to rear their ugly heads, right? Like people come to me all the time and it's like, my life is fine. Everything's perfect. I'm happy in my job. I have a great family. Why am I fucking depressed? Why is my trauma coming up? Why is my childhood trauma coming up when I'm trying to parent my kids? Like, that's just something that you have to pay attention to, because I don't think the brain processes trauma very uniquely, and you never know kind of how it's going to process it. So I hope, my point with all of this is I just hope that he has like good support system, access to like actual good therapy if he needs it, because
Right.
this has impacted his brain. It's impacted his attachment, his development. Like this is so much deeper than I think anybody realizes.
Can definitely like bleed into adulthood.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It seems like you were able to like do a pretty remarkable job at like separating it somehow. Like you were able, even when you were in it, in the thick of it, you were able to like be like, this is a business. This isn't real. This is a business. And now looking back on it, you're like, I don't know. It just feels like it's really amazing how you're able to like separate yourself from that. Like, you know who you are, and that's like all you really care about.
Yeah. Man, I feel like we had a moment there. You just like described who I was. That was awesome.
Okay. When was the last time you spoke to your mom?
Yeah. Let me think. So she was arrested, and I didn't hear from anyone at all. No one ever called me, talked to me. And then a week later, I get a call from her, and I was with my sister.
Damn, it was a whole week. Oh no, I'm thinking nobody told him at all.
Oh,
He didn't
no,
hear for
he
a
just
week.
didn't hear
Okay.
from
It's
anybody.
like he was with. That makes no sense.
Kitchen, my older sister, and so she started the tape recorder, and and I just got on, and she was very still in the mindset of what I did was right, and I was now in the mindset of what she did was wrong. So it was kind of like an argument back and forth, and I was trying to help her see what she did was wrong, and we were talking in very spiritual ways, because that's the way she talks, and relating it to scriptural stories, and that's basically how we talk. Like, Mom, Jesus wouldn't do this. Mom, Jesus wouldn't do that. Jesus wouldn't hurt her kids like this. And it was the first, and I'm serious, this is the first time anyone has ever fought back on her, at least someone who's close to her. This is the first time someone has fought back on her in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, I hope God tells you who I really am. And, immediately my, red flag started clicking, and I was like, okay, she's still in this bad mindset. And then about like 3 or 5 days later, she called me again, and I couldn't even get a word off that whole call. She had 5 minutes to talk, and I didn't say a word. She just was bawling. She was just crying. And she's like, I thought about everything you said, and I realized, like, you are completely right, and no one has ever talked to me that way, the way you talk to me, and I realized what I've done is wrong. And then she started talking about money, because a week before she was arrested, my savings account, everything I earned from the YouTube channel, wiped, zero, no money. And to this day, I still haven't gotten that back. So everything I earned from that 8 Passengers channel, I have nothing now from it. So it's just crazy. And she finally, in that call where she was crying, she said, I promise I'll get every penny back to you. I'll talk to my lawyer, and, we're going to work through things. And, I love you. I love my parents, because she had no relationship with her parents for so long. And she finally is like, I want to have a relationship back with everyone. And I'm super sorry. And, I, at the very end of the call, she said, I love you, I got to go. And then I did say, I love you back, because hearing her vulnerable like that, I hadn't heard that from her ever in years. And if I know a lot of people say, she's got crocodile tears, she fakes it. But that phone call for 5 minutes, I couldn't, unless she's the greatest actress in the world. To me, it felt so real. And
You felt it was genuine.
that phone call, knowing my mom, was a genuine phone call. So that was the last time I've spoken to her. Just because, I said I love you, and just because she was extremely apologetic, doesn't mean I should have a relationship with her right now. And perhaps down the road, and when I say down the road, I mean like down the road, I'll open that back up again. But yeah, that was the last time. So, like a week after she was arrested was the last time I talked to her.
Has she?
Dang, that was a lot. I guess, I don't know. Obviously, nobody's going to know her like her own kids.
Nope.
And everything. But like, that initial call is what I would expect from someone like Ruby, who seems to have like narcissistic traits and has like created these alternate realities that she lives in, where, I mean, just going back to the whole incident, the beanbag incident or whatever, she had already created this reality where people love her no matter whatever she says. And she said, keep it in there, because I'm living truth, like Jody says, and I am proud of it. And I think that is something to be proud of. And then as soon as it turns sour, she paints it on somebody else. So that part tracks. But then to finally even recognize it the second time around and be like, I completely fucked up and everything is wrong and I owe you so much and I'm going to do whatever I need to do or whatever. I don't think that someone who is in Ruby's position normally would be able to get to that point and even acting and pretending that they felt some sort of contrition or something like that. I don't know.
This is hard for me because my own stuff bleeds into my perception of this case, because I also have a mom like this. But it's hard to say, because everything with Ruby is always a performance, right? Like everything with Ruby has performative factors, and I respect Chad's perception and his, like, what he has surmised out of this conversation. And I think that is totally fine. I think what people have to be aware of when we're talking with people who have a mental illness, who might have narcissistic traits, tendencies, who might have more severe mental illness that is potentially undiagnosed, they are unmedicated, they are not getting any kind of support or professional help, that even like the act of forgiveness and crying and things can be performative, right? Like those things serve a purpose that can still be manipulative, because you have to think about what she wants. Like, it is probably distressing to her to think about not being forgiven. So what do I have to do in order to be forgiven? I have to grovel and get on my knees and pretend that I did everything wrong. But that's the thing, is because of this dynamic, because we're outsiders, I don't know that anybody will ever know. The only person who knows for certain is Ruby. That's the only person. But it is certainly more than possible for people who struggle with things like this to do a display like Chad describes, and for it to be completely inauthentic. It is possible. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case here, but I just want to present that it is possible that that's still might be representative of what's happening here.
And it's at least a stark contrast from where Jody's at, because Jody's out here and
Jody leans more into it.
she still to this day doesn't think that she did anything wrong.
No.
Even though she's a disgusting fucking monster.
And I mean, also to say it benefits Ruby greatly to look remorseful.
Right.
Ruby's sentence kind of hangs in the balance, in my opinion, more than Jody's does. Ruby has the potential, I feel like, to get out way sooner than Jody does. And so it ultimately benefits her to look remorseful, to look trite, to like
True.
look, to have the, I'm trying to think, I blended my words. It's like the contrite spirit that Mormonism
Right.
always talks about, right? That works for her because there are people observing her behavior in jail who are going to determine what her sentence is. So there's a lot on the line here. Her own freedom is on the line based on her ability to look remorseful. Now, could she still be remorseful? Sure. Nobody knows. That's the whole point of this, is nobody knows.
Tried reaching out to you after?
Through letters.
Okay.
Yeah. She would send them to our home address, and then eventually the prison stopped allowing her to do that because it was like invading our personal space or sending them directly to us. So yeah, she's written like 4 or 5 letters to me throughout the year.
Bad indicator for me. To support my previous hypothesis, best
Possibly.
apology is changed behavior. If you are apologetic about these things, but you refuse to respect your kids' boundaries, you do things that are inappropriate, you do things that continually violate somebody's privacy. Now, maybe somebody could make the argument that she is remorseful, but she needs support.
Right.
She needs a mental health professional to step in and teach her some boundaries. Like, I know it's hard. Let's sit with the pain, but let's talk about, in order for you to have healthy relationships with other people, you're not going to like their decisions and you're going to have to respect their boundaries if you want a relationship with them. And that, to me, this is more of an indicator of, I'm still not getting it. Like, it's still, I'm still honoring what I want and my own discomfort, and you not having a relationship with me and forgiving me over however you're feeling. Which also tracks with Sherry's experience, because Sherry talked about how she sent her a letter that literally only talked about Sherry when she was a baby and literally just talking about herself. So again,
There you go.
we're dealing with, narcissistic personality disorder is rare, but if that's what's happening here, it's deep. It impacts a person very deeply and a lot of times prevents them from their own self-insight. Being able to see that these behaviors are boundary violations and I shouldn't be doing that. Like, the narcissism is a protective layer for acknowledging things that she probably doesn't want to acknowledge, right? So this to me is more in line with, she hasn't gotten the picture quite yet. But again, I could be wrong. This is just my hypothesis.
Even though
Person
she's
very
still in the
deeply
mindset of being apologetic and,
Quite yet.
knowing that she was guilty of
But again.
everything, the letters are still very spiritual. And to me, it's like, you kind of broke that trust talking about God so much with me
Yeah.
that I don't really want to talk about God with you again, because you just
Weaponized God.
Yeah, you just weaponized it, and that's a perfect word for it. Weaponized it and just spoiled and rotten my whole view
Yeah.
on that because of
quite
you.
yet.
And I'm trying to redirect it in a different way from what you did. So every time I read her letter, it just feels like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And so she hasn't written one in probably a year. So
Okay.
it's been a while.
This may be a complicated question or not, but do you forgive her?
That is a complicated question. Yeah.
I hate this question. Stop asking people who are in abusive
Right.
circumstances, abusive situations, abusive parents, spouses, partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever the case may be. Stop asking this question. This question is so, like,
This may be
what's a
Loaded.
good word? It's loaded, but I don't even know if I can find a word that encapsulates how I feel about this question. Stop, because the underpinnings of this is
Right.
abusive circumstances of the internet and the community and public perception, especially within religion, it is best to forgive, right? Like, that is generally the expectation. Forgive,
This may be
Jesus would forgive. There's families who have people murdered, and the victim's family forgives the murderer.
Right. You should forgive 7 times, 70 times.
Exactly. Like, there's all this rhetoric around the need for forgiveness, and I think it's bullshit. The internet, quite frankly, like, the idea that you need to forgive in order to move on is antithetical to the healing process, and it's not actually accurate, and it's not actually the majority of people's experience. You can accept somebody's actions,
This may be
accept somebody's behaviors, their impact on families who have people and continually move forward. You don't need to forgive that person. Like, I'll never forgive my mother for the things that she's done to me, but that doesn't mean that I'm, like, stuck in my healing journey. I think
I'm
it's
stuck
bullshit,
in that
quite
position
frankly.
and I'm never moving forward. It's like, no, I've accepted that my mother is who she is and I have no relationship with her for that reason. And so, like, that's the difference. Is like this idea of like I need to forgive is almost like, I don't know. I feel like
This may
there's
be
this
it.
societal pressure and expectation that that's what and continually move in this situation, and it makes people uncomfortable. Like when they come to therapy, I'll never forgive. I have heard multiple times. I feel like I need to forgive. I feel this obligation to forgive this person, even though I don't want to. And that's your indicator. I feel like I need to. I don't want to. And I have no like this is
Right.
the predicament that it puts people in these kinds of situations. And I feel like it just minimizes the complexity of all this. Like this is so multifaceted.
This may be it.
So complex. And to try to like dumb it down to, do you forgive this person? Like, how much time do you have? Like, this is so much more than my forgiveness towards this person. You know what I mean?
I feel like people kind of
have no relationship with them.
rail on that, especially when it's a
I
parent
feel
that
like it
needs
just
to be forgiven,
minimizes the-
because they're like, oh, well, they did so much for you. They
This may
raised
be it.
you. That's what they're
down to-
fucking required to do.
That's what
They
they're
didn't do
supposed to
anything
do.
special by making sure you're alive. They are legally obligated to clothe you, to house you, and not like neglect you
Yep.
because they brought you into this world. They
Yeah.
didn't give you anything special. You are not beholden to an apology when you inevitably go awry and do something awful just because you did that.
Yep.
Like, that's not a good enough reason to forgive somebody.
No. And if you feel like forgiveness is helpful for your healing process, by all means.
It's all
Like,
you, right?
That's all you. Like, I will facilitate and help you with that process if that's what you need and I'm your therapist. But the point being, like, I think there's too much heaviness on this. I think it minimizes the overall discourse and complexity of the situation and dumbs it down to something that just takes away from actual important things that could be taken from this. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Everything is in the past. Like it's over. Everyone's safe. The story's kind of done. It felt like a movie for a long time, and now I feel like the movie's at an end. It is a complicated question because I do forgive her in a sense of I want her to from now on live the best life she possibly can. I want her to be a better person. I want her to eventually grow up to have relationships again and be safe with people and trust people so people can trust her too. And I wish her the complete best. But seeing the action she did, it's like I can't just forget about that and then forgive her and have a full relationship with her again.
Yeah.
But the word forgiveness, I love that word, and I love the thought of forgiving someone and still loving someone. So I feel like I'm on the fence of, loving them and forgiving them, but not having a relationship with them. So
I love that.
That's a healthy boundary right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very healthy
Don't let
boundary.
anybody tell you otherwise. Just do
When
it like
you were just
want to.
talking, I was thinking of a couple things, but what is your relationship with religion? Is that something that you
Now this is what I'm interested in.
still want to partake in, or do you just feel like you're kind of over it?
Yeah, I'm still very much a Christian. I know a lot of people think that the Mormon religion is not Christian, but I pray to Jesus, and I have a very profound love for him, and everything that my mom and Jody taught me, it was just, they took like the Christian religion and just exploded it into some extreme beliefs.
Yeah.
And so I think in the last year and a half, 2 years, I've been just trying to shave down. It's like if someone gave me ice cream that's really good and they added like pickles to it. I feel like I'm slowly just like getting the pickles out because I think the religion itself is beautiful and amazing and really simple at its base.
Relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, my relationship with Jesus and God, and I think it was just spoiled so much. I'm slowly starting to pick out the sour parts and that they taught me. So I don't like look at someone who smokes and vapes now, and because I used to just be like, oh, they're distorted. I don't want to be around anyone who lives in distortion at all. And so, but now I feel like, okay, now I'm starting to allow some distortion into my life, and it starts to feel good because now I can feel like I love anyone I'm around, and that's my basis is no matter who I'm around, I just want to love them for the person they are.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
And this is where we come back around to the, how can he have gone through this awful thing and not see it? Even though it was just an amped up version of Mormonism. Like, he had the absolute worst of the worst, And now when he's in a situation where the leader of thought, so to speak, isn't saying you have to be exiled now because you won't do what I'm telling you. He's just in regular, milquetoast Brighamite Mormonism. It seems a lot more comfortable, even though those same ideas are there. They're just not as intense.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes off as like, yeah, this is obvious. There's nothing wrong with this or whatever, because like fundamentally, that's the paradigm that he was raised in. Those things are still there. So coming back to it feels like home.
Well, and you can't ask somebody who has lost a lot and experienced a lot of pain and a lot of trauma. Like, there's a reason when Mormon missionaries are going out and trying to recruit people, they're looking for people who have recently been through traumatic experiences. Because what do people do when they're going through a traumatic experience? They're searching for meaning. They're trying to derive purpose and meaning from their experience, and even community as support network. And what does Mormonism do? It comes in and swoops in and provides that for them and tells
Right.
them why they're experiencing trauma and tells them that it's eventually for the best and all of those things. And so to ask somebody who's already given up a lot to also give up at their religion at the same time is something that I just don't see realistic. Am I going to differ with him on this and his opinions in Mormonism? Sure, that's never going to change.
Obviously, yeah.
This looks like cafeteria Mormonism to me at best. We've talked at length about why Mormons aren't Christians, and they never will be, but they like that portrayal because it makes them seem less weird. And so all of that still applies, but like, I'm not going to shame a person for leaning into a value system or a religious belief that has helped them, especially in this context, and especially since they're so fucking young. I mean, Chad still does not have a fully developed brain, nor does any 19-year-old, and so who knows how his situation is
Right.
going to evolve in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Hello, Tommy. Well, this is a rarity.
This is a rarity.
We'll leave it in. Now, that's definitely not to say that I co-sign. Like, Chad has some problematic views from my point of view, and like they're also ones that are confirmed by the Mormon bias. So obviously, that's going to be a comfortable place for him to land. But it's not. It goes without saying that I don't think that it's completely harmless that he fell back on that, despite it being the most comfortable place for him to land.
But can I understand it? Yes.
Completely.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so special. Last thing before we move on to our next part, but I'm curious, you talked about your first call with your mom, like really talking about how you knew that what she did was wrong. Was there a point when you started to realize that like everything that she had put you through was not right, or was it just a gradual thing over time? People started telling you that wasn't good.
It was very gradual.
Yeah.
In fact, in the first like week or two, I was totally on her side for everything.
Yeah.
And I said this in the documentary. As sad as it is to say, like when she described the abuse as saving the kids from demons, I believed that. I truly did, because I was fed all the spiritual
You knew
stuff,
nothing else.
and that's all I knew for a long time. And I believed that, and it was really hard for me to detox from that. And it definitely was a gradual thing. It was a big gradual thing. And social media is not the best place for answers or truth, but I will say some of the videos they posted about like my past in 8 Passengers, they posted some 8 Passengers videos. Watching those videos, they started to make me realize, like, okay, yeah, that was definitely bad. Oh, okay, yeah, she was definitely in the wrong right there. And so watching those videos, I slowly realized, okay.
In childhood, when you have abusive parents, it is detrimental to a child to realize that their parents, the people that are charged with keeping them alive, are actually causing them harm. Those thoughts coexisting for children are extremely harmful, because these are the parents who love them and support them. And no matter how bad they are, there's still this kind of hierarchy of, these are my parents, these people protect me. And so the brain is going to do all kinds of funky things that are like primitive and kind of like natural by design to essentially keep kids compartmentalized from that reality. Like, to keep kids safe from really getting into that, especially when they're young, right? And so this being a gradual process for me makes sense even from like a brain standpoint, because some of these things will unfold for him over time. Like there are memories that will probably come back to him years down the road. The brain encodes memories in kind of a really funky way when it comes to trauma. And so I think this is truly the beginning of his realizations and understanding and like self insights about the things that he's experiencing. I think this truly, like, we're watching the beginning of the process for him. And I'm glad he's in a good space, but like this will continually unfold. This will be a gradual process. And when we tie grief in with that, he will probably have varying feelings about this experience throughout this process. Like we might be in acceptance for a while. We might jump back to bargaining. We might go back to anger. We might step into denial. Like grief is not a linear process. It's not steps and stages. And once we complete one, we check it off and we move on to another, like to another one. Like that's not how it works. And so this is going to be like a lifelong transformation interpretation of his childhood. And so I just hope he has all the support that he needs in order to move through that.
When you think back on your childhood, do you have fond memories? Is it something you don't really like to think about?
Yeah. Of course I have fond memories, but I think everything before Jody, I have just blocked out of my mind completely. It's probably the worst way I should be going about it, but
Normal.
Right.
What did I just talk about, right? Kids are going to dissociate. Adults dissociate to cope with trauma. That's how the brain keeps you alive in unthinkable situations, right? So the brain is going to encode those memories funkily. So like I said, this is not going to be something that's like this whole thing's just going to dump on him and he's going to have all these memories and shit to sort through. Like this will be a gradual process. And so I hope he doesn't feel bad about that, because this is how the brain deals with trauma. Like he couldn't even necessarily control this process.
I don't know. People will come up to me in public and be like, "Oh, do you remember this video?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." Like they tell me things about myself that I don't even remember because I just try to block it all out. But memories with my siblings.
To be fair, when you're making content, that is a pretty common occurrence when you're on video for hours and
That's
hours.
fair. Like what would he remember?
Everything
versus
just kind
not?
of blends together.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you most of the stuff that we said last
And we don't
episode.
film near as often as they were.
No.
And my dad and even my mom, when she wasn't really focused on the money, incredible memories as a kid. We had such a fun childhood before all the teenage years, and so it was a lot of fun. I loved it.
That's so. I have to preface this. I am not comparing my trauma to yours in any way, but that is such a trauma thing, and it made me realize when you were saying that. The same thing happens to me
With acting? Is that...
Yeah. Well, just things. There's like a certain point in my life where I just don't really remember things before, and people will do the same thing. Like, I mean, friends, they'll be like, "Hey, remember that time we did this and that?" And I just, there's so many things I don't have any recollection of.
Yeah.
And it has to be some sort of trauma response.
100%.
Dissociation.
Yeah, it's so
She
weird.
knows.
So it freaks me out sometimes. Like
Yeah.
friends or family will be like, "Remember when you did this?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What the heck is wrong with my brain?"
Yeah.
So true.
I think it's a normal response.
Yeah.
Wait, what
They're
was the
probably
word
just
you
gaslighting you. No, I'm just kidding.
described it as? Disassociation?
Yeah.
Dissociation.
Okay.
Wow. Why was that? Dissociation.
We said distorted way too much of this, and I'm like mixing my words up now. Yeah, dissociate. You're dissociating from things.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
From the distortion.
From the dissociating from the distortion.
Awesome.
I'd love to know what your relationship is like with your dad, with your sister, with your siblings, because I feel like when people go through traumatic events together, I feel like it can either go two ways. It can either be like you're trauma bonded, you need this person, you need them by your side for everything, or it's you see the person and you're reminded of that trauma, so you don't really want a relationship with them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Where do you stand with that?
Yeah. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, they did the, Chad, Sherry, and Kevin did interviews separately in the documentary," and a lot of people think that because we did the interviews separately that we don't have a relationship together. The producers actually did that on...
Not gonna lie, that's kind of a dumb conclusion to draw.
Like they film on different days.
Like,
okay.
they have different schedules
Yeah.
and stories, and it wouldn't make any sense to have them all together. That's just not. I don't know.
purpose because they didn't want our stories to be intertwined.
Yeah.
They didn't want the story to be all messed up if we
Yeah.
agree with one person, but we don't actually view it that way. But yeah, so just because we did the interview separately does not mean that we don't like see each other. We still have weekly Sunday dinners, and everyone is we're all in a very tight-knit group, and everyone is safe and happy, and we all love each other. No trauma when we look at each other. So
That's
yeah,
great.
I think all of us collectively have just simply moved on and just kind of left it in the past.
I was thinking about this earlier, but have you done therapy in later life?
Like after Jody?
Yeah, after Jody.
Yeah,
Like
no.
actual therapy.
Yeah, no one's asked me that.
Real
I actually
therapy.
appreciate you
Actual
asking.
therapy.
I did. Yeah. It kind of was a requirement because, our whole family like went through this whole thing, and, for us to kind of be back together, we needed to heal. And so I was asked by DCFS, the family services, to take therapy for a certain amount of time. And it was great. Like, I loved it. I did it for a couple of weeks, and it wasn't him telling me what to do. It was like,
A couple weeks. I guess
Hey, I'll take
they
it.
probably
The
only
DCFS ain't gonna pay
mandated
for
so
much.
much.
Yeah.
if I had an issue or a problem, he just asked me questions, and then I start questioning myself, and then I figure out an answer after questioning myself. It's like that's how therapy is supposed to be.
Yeah.
There you go. Signed and dated. Therapy was not happening.
We love to see it. Now, this is to say, if you've had a horrendous therapy experience and you don't ever want to do therapy again, I can understand that. I can respect that. But I do love that it being such a helpful tool that people who have even had bad experiences can return to it and actually benefit and actually get what he was supposed to be getting this entire time, and not have your therapist just be telling you what to do.
Right.
And that to me is there's lots of resilient, beautiful things that have come out of such a horrendous traumatic experience, but that to me is a big one.
Check out this rare occurrence here.
Do you have something to say?
He's waiting to be fed.
Therapists never should tell you what to do.
Yeah.
They should just give you good questions to kind of question yourself, and it was great. It was great. It was awesome. And then after a couple of weeks, I realized, I feel like I'm in a very good mental spot. I've got friends. I've got Call of Duty. I've got all kinds of just fun things
Real.
that I enjoying life with, and yeah. So I went away from it, and I don't do it anymore. But if I ever feel like I need it, it's a safe thing for me now, and
Yeah.
You're not afraid of it.
I'm not
Scarred
afraid of
by
it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
don't have a distorted view of it. Sorry, I'm
Exactly.
literally just going to use that
I
word
love
as much
it.
as I can
That's
now.
awesome. That's awesome.
Last question I have for you is, if you could go back to one moment in your life, happy, sad, whatever, what moment would that be, and what would you say to yourself?
That's a good question. I like that. Yeah, I think one moment really just is in there. Dang, I was a really athletic kid, like really, really athletic. And my sophomore year of high school, I ran track, and that was the best thing I was good at because I was a sprinter and I ran really fast. And my sophomore year of high school, I was like top 5 sprinter in Utah, and I went to state and made it in the top 5. And I was like, by senior year, I was getting ready to like break the state records and then go to college and do that. And that was like my big exciting thing. That was what I was best at, was sprinting, and I loved it so much. And I remember that year after my sophomore year, Jody told me, I couldn't do football anymore because I was living in distortion and football was a distraction. So she didn't want me to do football anymore. And that was really sad for me, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. As long as I have sprinting, I cannot play football, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then I remember, as she started taking away more and more things, I could see it coming, that she was going to take away track as well. And this was actually when she was living in our home, and we would have our meetings upstairs. And I remember, we had our weekly therapy session, and she brought me in, and she said, "Hey, Chad, I know you've been expecting this, but me, your mom, and dad, we're going to not have you run track this next season." And I was never
Devastating.
The
Devastating.
3-parent dynamic here is
And come up for your therapy session because I'm your
Crazy.
therapist living in your house. Like,
crazy.
unbelievable.
Not therapy.
emotional with her. We were very straightforward business, working on our spiritual self. But when she said that, I cried like a baby, and I would never, ever, ever question her. But in that moment, I was like begging her, like, can you please, take everything away from me, but please don't take this away from me.
Yeah.
And that was just because those were my best friends were. That's where my relationships was in track. And I know it's such a small thing, just running a high school track team, but to me, that was like everything.
It is not.
Yeah.
And her taking that away from me, I think that was just the final thing that just, I became numb and cold after that.
For sure.
Because nothing else could be taken away from me after that. Even when my mom was arrested and I found out about my siblings, I think from her taking away track, I became so cold and numb to like bad news, I didn't even flinch. When I heard my mom was arrested, I didn't even have any emotion.
Yeah.
Just because my favorite thing in the world was taken from me. And if I could go back, that's the one thing that I would have snuck out of the house just to go to track practice, or snuck out of the house to go run at track meets. Like, that to me was everything. And I mean, I don't have like the legs I did as a teen, like a high schooler anymore. So, that's not something I'm going to do, and that's fine. But at the moment, that was just everything. And if I could go back, I'd just rebel for that one thing.
Well, and how sinister that this whole experience, taking that away from him, taking away the one thing that they knew that he cared about for no reason. Like, this is just for their own demented, like, it's Jody's demented joy in inflicting pain on other people that's coming out of this. Like, there was nothing that Chad was even doing that would warrant something like this. Nothing. Like, no danger, nothing severe, no risky behavior. Like, in my mind, there's nothing that would warrant this. Like, the only justification for this is Jody's sick need to make other people suffer. And for that to be the reason that this happened is just like salt in the wound in my mind.
It's so sad too to see where he's like, it's just like this little thing.
Because it's not.
It's not, because he was talking about goals for track.
He was one of the best in the state.
Right. Top 5 goals for track. And he's hoping that to carry on into university and everything like that. Like, and then he's ending up getting kicked out of his own home before he's finishing high school.
Yeah.
And so far as I know, I don't think he's been able to attend university, because he was out on his ass, right? When he finished high school.
I don't know if he graduated or not. Did he?
I
think he did.
I think he did. But I mean, still getting kicked out of your own home to basically like fend for yourself, and before you're finishing high school is like devastating.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And like to, if he wants to go to school and stuff like that, I hope he gets to. But like the way that he was picturing it when he was younger is what has completely gone by now, and he doesn't get that opportunity, and
that's
he can't go
horrible.
back. And it's not just this little thing, right? Like, in the grand scheme of things, of the crimes that were committed, it seems a lot more inconsequential than anything. But like, this is big, like this is life altering, and it completely changed the path that he was on. And I think it should be,
It's valid.
yeah, it should be something that's devastating to you, even though you thought, oh, it's just like a fun little thing that I like to do. It was the thing that you liked to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it was your love and passion. So
Yeah.
makes complete sense.
So anyway, there's a lot of interesting insights to be gleaned from this. Also, the snuck-in thing. I feel like that's such a Utah thing
is.
to say.
It is.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just anything extra that you hear about this, it just really sucks, man. Like physically, he probably did not bear the brunt of it compared to his younger siblings that really, really
I mean,
suffered
I would argue
physically.
emotionally.
Emotionally, he definitely got way.
How
I
can
mean,
you-
it's
not
not
even
like
quantifiable.
trauma Olympics or anything
No.
like that. It's not to say that he didn't suffer, or he isn't enough of a victim just because he wasn't included in the evidence photos that
I
they
think
had to
being
take at
in a
her house.
room with Jody for more than 10 minutes is
Yeah.
you're a victim.
You're a victim. Honestly, I feel victimized by how much I've unfortunately had to fucking talk about her But I'm definitely not the victim in this story, so
No,
let's
not at
not
all.
mince words here.
No, not at all. And they're a resilient bunch. They're a resilient bunch, and I hope he continues on his healing path and does whatever he needs to do in this period of time to take care of himself. And I'm glad they still have each other.
Truly. Obviously we don't want to see people's families broken up over things and people's support systems to go completely extinct because of something awful that's happened. And like, obviously I think there's a lot of faults in a lot of camps, whether it be on Kevin's side or, you know, people
Ruby,
who were around
Jody,
them at the time.
church, yeah.
The church, yeah, all of these people may have seen, you know, a hand in this coming to fruition and everything like that. But in that circumstance, just as we've always said with the flip side of things where, oh, if this is how awful they are on camera, I wonder how they are off camera. We don't know the whole story.
Mm-mm.
Ultimately, they have their reasons why they continue to be around each other, and we should respect that and should be able to understand that it's not our story to tell, and it's not really our thing to opine on because
I mean, nobody else has experienced what they experienced, right?
Right.
And like, it's unique to have a person who went through it with you to be able to be like, you know what, that was really fucking crazy. Like, that
Right.
was really fucked up. And I can't believe mom did that. Like, there is a lot of healing power in that. And so I'm not going to even pretend to understand the dynamics at play between like him and his dad or any of those things. Like, I'm a firm believer in these kids are resilient and they're going to figure their shit out and they're going to do what's best for them in the moment. And the fact that they're alive and well is enough for me,
Right.
you know?
All right, that's all we have for you today. This one, I don't know how long this one's going to end up being, but it's longer than the ones that we've been doing recently. So if you enjoyed what you were seeing, you want to see some more, you can hit the subscribe button down below. Check us out. We've got all kinds of other content. There's a whole playlist that this one will be on if you want to see more about our experiences and musings as the 8 Passengers
Saga.
unfolded in front of us. Go and check that out. If you'd like to support the channel further, we would really appreciate it. You can become a member of the channel right next to the subscribe button. You get a bunch of perks you can read about there. Or if you already use Patreon and you would like to subscribe there, you can get the same benefits by just going over there.
And if you like reality TV, if you like specifically Mormon reality TV, we're currently in the process of watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. We do watch parties where we all gather together and chat during the live episode and talk before and after. And so if you're interested in doing that, it's only $1 a month and you get to come join us to watch the rest of the season. We still have a ways to go.
So yeah, check those out. If you'd like some more of us and just general stuff that we post or whatever, you can follow us on socials. You can find us at Jordan and McKay on Instagram and on TikTok. Not nearly as active. Jordan reposts a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah, go read.
But
I repost weird Mormon shit. So
Yeah.
if you're intrigued by that, go check it out.
usually it's just clips and stuff like that. But yeah, check us out over there. Like we said with the watch parties, we do that over on Discord. You can join our Discord server. The invitation is in the description down below. So we'd love to have you. But anyway, that's where we're going to bring this one to a close. We appreciate all of you. Thanks for sticking around if you did. We love you. You're awesome. Don't let Jody Hildebrandt tell you what's distortion and what's truth, because that lady is lost. And we'll see you next time.